Good morning and welcome to Walk Before You Run. Today, let's walk through Joshua. I really want to walk through Joshua 13 through 17, but before we read that, I want to go to Joshua 23 and kind of give you a setup. Um, Joshua is talking to the people. This is not too long before he passes away. And he's talking to the people to help them to remember when. And so that's kind of what I entitled our walk today, Remember When. But in chapter 23, I'm just going to drop down to 6. It says, well, let's do 1 and then I'll drop down. It says, and it came to pass a long time after that, the Lord had given rest unto Israel from all their enemies round about, that Joshua waxed old and stricken in age. It says, Joshua was talking to the people, say, be ye therefore very courageous to keep and to do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, that ye turn not aside therefrom to the right hand or to the left, that ye come not among these nations, these that remain among you, neither make mention of the names of their gods, nor cause to swear by them, neither serve them, nor bow yourselves unto them, but cleave unto the Lord your God, as he have done unto you this day. And so he's trying to get them to remember the commandment of God, to keep themselves a people of God, and to remind them of the things that God has done for them. If you drop down to verse 10 and 23, it says, one man of you shall chase 1,000 for the Lord your God. He it is that fighteth for you, as he hath promised you. Now I want to go to chapter 24. So he's talking to them and trying to make them solid before he goes on to be with the Lord. Verse 13 in chapter 24 says, and, well, 12 says, and I sent the hornet before you, which drove them, talking about the people that were in the land that God had given them, drove them out from before you, even the 2 kings of the Amorites, but not with thou sword, nor with thy bow. And I have given you a land for which ye did not labor, and cities which ye built not, ye dwell in them, of the vineyards and of the olive yards which ye planted not, do ye eat. God is saying, I blessed you. I have blessed you to have life comfortably, to have life more abundantly. He says, now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord. You know, he's saying, don't make the same mistakes your fathers did. Because remember, by this time, they didn't even get to see the promised land, because they kept serving those gods of that foreign land. And he had already told them, don't do that. But they did it anyway. And then they kept complaining. Every time God would bless them, instead of them focusing on what God was giving them and being grateful, they were always thinking about what they didn't have or what somebody else had, and being very ungrateful. But he tells them, um, now, therefore, fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord. And if it seems evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day. And I like the fact that at first he's talking to the whole people. You know, he's saying ye, all of y'all. But then he says, choose you, you individually. Choose you this day whom ye will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites. Now, this is the land that they came into. They went knowing that God had brought them in, knowing that God had done all these things for them, preserved their lives, preserved even the things that they had, their shoes, their clothing. And so they saw all these things that God had done, and yet they get to this new land and start doing exactly what he had already told them not to do. So the thing that Joshua is telling them, this is not new. Moses had already told them, God is a jealous God, serve only him. And there they went. And so Joshua goes on to say, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And the people answered and said, God forbid that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For the Lord our God, he it is that brought us up, our fathers out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, and which did those great signs in our sight. So they saw what God did. So it's not like they forgot or they didn't know, and so they went after these other gods, but they saw all the things that God had done. And it wasn't like they forgot because they just mentioned it. And so it goes on to say, for the Lord our God, he it is that brought us up and our fathers out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, and which did those great signs in our sight, and preserved us in all the way wherein we went, and among all the people through whom we passed. So they knew that God took care of them, and every danger, every situation that they overcame, they knew it was nobody but God. They just said that. But then it goes on to say, and the Lord drove out. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a part of what I just finished reading. And the Lord drove out from before us all the people, even the Amorites, which dwelt in the land. Now, God drives them out, and yet they start worshiping the gods that God had just gotten rid of out of their lives. I'm going to finish reading this and then we'll talk. Therefore, we will also serve the Lord, for he is our God. They said that, and if you read on in the word, they go back to their old ways. Is that like us? It's not like we don't remember the things that God has done, the great and wonderful things that he's done in our lives. It's not that he has not shown himself to us to be faithful. And yet we are not faithful. Yet we go back and forth. So this should be a sounding bell to us to go back and remember when God delivered us from all the things that he has brought us through. And that ought to fortify our faith so that we're not going back and forth, that we're not looking at somebody else that does not love the Lord and we following them instead of following God. So we need to say and we need to stand on the things that they said. When Joshua said, choose ye this day whom you're going to serve, and they said, oh, you don't have to worry about us. We are following God. We need to take that stand and say, this day we are following God. And we're not going to, like Joshua told them in chapter 23, we're not going to turn to the left. We're not going to turn to the right. We're going to follow God. We're going to stay focused. We're going to stand firm, and we're going to be faithful. Thank you for walking through the word with me today. Go back and read those 2 chapters. I mean, it's full of golden nuggets. And I did not even cover all of it, but just make sure that as you walk through God's word and walk through this life, that you stay focused, stand firm, and be faithful. I'll see you next time.